Our story. We love our story. It feels like a story of a really, really good dad who's so detailed and really knows his kids. And it's just his absolute delight to bring two people together that he has thought about for a long time and, in a way, designed for each other. So, how did it all begin?
Well, I first heard of Kate when I was in first year and I was asking about second year revival group pastors. And I was trying to figure out, hey, who would it be good for me to go talk to see if I can be in their group next year? And the first person that they told me was Kate Eifert. They said, hey, they're all amazing, but the way that she takes care of a group and what she's doing with community, I think that you would really, really find valuable. So that was the first time I heard of her. When I got in second year, I started seeing her, do her thing. I noticed how she was interacting with the group. I didn't happen to get in her group.
It was a good thing.
It was a good thing. I'm very thankful. But I was noticing, I was like, man, this girl is amazing, and she looks amazing. And she's just doing her thing. She's super powerful. And I just loved the way that she was taking care of her team, her interns, and her revival group students. So I was trying to get all of my single friends to pursue her.
He was dating at the time, so he was trying to get all of his friends to be dating me, which was pretty funny at the point where we started dating, because we're unfolding the backstory to each other, and he comes to that point. I'm like, wait a second, who are you talking to? That's why I was feeling all those guys. All right.
So you fast forward to the end of my third year. I'm single now. I'm on Facebook one day, and I'm seeing Kate Eifert post something on there. I was like, wow, Kate Eifert. I wonder if she's still single. It would be a miracle if Kate was still single. So I did a little Facebook stalking. Sure enough, at least according to Facebook, then she was single. And so I was just like, Papa, I have no natural overlap with Kate. I would love the opportunity to just hang out with her. Can we have fun together? Do we have anything in common? What is she like when she's not at work? What does she like to do? So I had all these questions, but no natural way to figure out any answers to them. And 2 days later, she posted on Facebook again that she needed a ride to the Sacramento airport. She was going on a trip.
Opportunity.
I was like, Jehovah Jireh. And I can do that. And miracle of all miracles, in this environment, nobody else said that they could take her to the airport. So I won.
So I'm seeing this post on my wall, and at first I'm thinking, Erik Bagley, you have never interacted with me on Facebook. And actually, somewhat of a miracle that we're even friends on Facebook. I just don't use Facebook a ton. So I have this, he calls it the purgatory of the people that are on my friend request list. Yeah. So he made it in that far. But I'm thinking, okay, we've never interacted before. And then I have this flashback to several months ago. And there was this moment at church where I'm coming in the door, he's walking out. Whoa, there we go.
Kate Eifert is right in my face all of a sudden. And somewhere in the deep consciousness of, in my brain somewhere, it just fell out of my mouth. I had a dream about you last night. And I'm discovering in the moment what I had been dreaming about as I hear her ask, oh, what was it about?
His face. Oh my gosh. In that moment, I watch his face go from hey, how's it going? Into, as he's realizing and consciously thinking of this dream for the first time. So I'm thinking, oh gosh, okay, give him an out. Oh, hey, if you're not supposed to share the dream yet at this point, that's totally okay. But he smoothed it over. He's like, I guess it's just a little awkward, but the dream I had, we had a DTR, define the relationship, and essentially we're more than friends. So in that moment, I'm just like, oh, how funny. Pat, give him a hug. Hey, have a great day. That's so funny.
Yeah.
He was nowhere on my radar at that point. But now fast forward again back to this car ride to the airport. I see the Facebook post and I think about this dream going, is there something to this? I don't know. Well, it's the option I have, so gave him a call. Hey, 6:45 a.m. worked for you? He was such a champ. Carrying my bags, opening doors, just being his wonderful self. And yeah, it was a wonderful drive down to the airport. I was just so relaxed in the car ride. I wasn't a revival group pastor or a leader or a role of some kind. I just got to be Kate, and it was really refreshing and really enjoyed conversation. A lot of overlap, so many different common interests and experiences or things that we enjoyed. And then we actually hit on a couple really core things that are unique to who we are beyond kind of the Bethel culture that we've both been in school with and, you know, adopted core values of the church. And so he starts talking about, yeah, I'm writing a book called Culture of Celebration. I just, like, really? Tell me more about that. Celebration, it does the body good, is one of my main core life messages I will probably bring everywhere I go. So that was just an amazing overlap.
It was really fun to just kind of be like, wow. I didn't want her to miss out on it, so I was like, hey, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but we've really got a lot in common.
I felt the intentionality of that statement there. So yeah. I was starting to pick up on, I think he might be interested, but I still don't want to assume.
But even mandates, like life mandates.
Yeah.
When I was in first year, I heard the Lord in a pretty sweet encounter say, I want you to build a house worthy of me. And I wrote it down, carried that with me, kept it before me, and we're on this car ride, and I hear her say that one of her life mandates is...
For years, even when I was in college, I couldn't get out of the passages about David and Solomon building the temple, and this phrase, build the house of the Lord, was something I felt like a mandate on my life from the Lord. So just pretty amazing overlap. So we get to the airport, and he's dropping me off and asks if I had arranged a ride back yet. And I actually hadn't. I was just going to post on Facebook again. It's pretty typical for people to be going back and forth between the Sac Airport and Reading. So he offers to pick me up again. He said, I would love to come get you again. And I'm thinking, instant internal processing, oh man, it would be really nice to not have to think about arranging a ride back after this moment. Man, if this guy really wants to come drive 5 hours back and forth to come get me, I'll let him. Okay. Thank you very much. That would be great. Then he picked me up from the airport. Significant moments on that ride as well. Just really enjoyable conversation. I think there were even a few times where Erik teared up, and I got to so see his connection to his own heart and hearing his relationship with the Lord as he talked. Like, wow, this guy is such a son. He really gets it. And then about 20 minutes out of Reading, the sun was setting. We're just enjoying that. And there was a worship song that came on, and he just turned it up higher. Just said, man, I just feel like we need a moment. Not performing or trying to create something, but just being himself. And he essentially just ushered us into the presence of God. Just began to turn his affection to the Lord and worship. And I sat there getting to experience that, thinking, whoa, I was just led into the presence by a man, not in a service, not on a microphone, behind a pulpit, just in normal life on the way back from the airport. That was really good. I had a couple little tears, just my heart responded to it. So it was just another beautiful ride back, and you don't know what you don't know. I just didn't know him, but wonderful, wonderful connection. So he drops me off. My roommates come out, and they're like, okay, Kate, what's the deal? This guy shows up on the scene, takes you to the airport, and then picks you up again. What's going on? I don't know. I don't even know. I'm pretty sure he's interested, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is, he had just dropped me off. Such a free gift. No, like, hey, can I call you? Can we do something maybe later this week? It was a free gift. And so at that stage, I didn't know. I didn't know the next time I would see him. I didn't know, but it was exciting.
Second year being one of those, I was able to pop in the second year a couple days later, and fortunately Heidi was there. Heidi was doing her thing. Everybody was laid out all over the place going into these sweet encounters, and I noticed that Kate was over behind her revival group table, kind of laid out. We hadn't said anything, but I could tell that we had both kind of noticed that the other was
eye contact.
There.
We knew each other were in the room.
And so I'm going into my own encounter and just really leaning into Papa's heart, and I just feel strongly that I need to take my jacket and I need to go lay it over her. And I'm thinking, that's pretty forward. Like, we're not really on that level of friendship or relationship or anything. And so I was kind of like, And I'm pressing in a little bit more, and I just feel another, like, kind of strong unction. Like, you need to go do this. Go put your jacket over her. And so I was like, all right, we're doing this. And so I took my jacket, and I kind of tiptoed over there nice and quietly, laid it on her gently, and then ran back over to where I was at, and I knelt down and started praying.
So meanwhile, I had seen him in the room. Again, I'm laid out, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm so grateful for what's happening in the room right now. I just want to dive into this moment with the Lord. But I also was back and forth with the thought, should I just get up and say hello to Erik briefly and acknowledge that he's here and thank him for the ride again? But I just was still laid out on the chairs when I feel this jacket being put on me. I didn't pick my head up, but I just knew it was him. So I just thought, wow, okay, I'm going. I'm out for a little while. And then afterwards, I grabbed his jacket and gave it back to him. And it was actually really helpful for me to hear some of his process with the whole moment. I thanked him, and he just said, hey, yeah, I hope that was really meaningful to you. I just felt so strongly I was supposed to do that. I actually resisted at first. Felt a little bit forward, but I just really felt the Lord strongly that I was supposed to do that. And I didn't tell him in the moment, but what he doesn't know, I just thanked him. But what he doesn't know is how significant covering is to me. And even when I'm in my own space, in my own time with the Lord, I like just a little something, like a blanket or something over me if I'm really opening my heart and going into a deep spot. So he was led by the Lord in a specific way to cover me. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, Lord, you have just showed him a meaningful way to cover me. My heart is now open to him.
When my heart has been positioned as a son and I'm just pursuing him, that's when I've been the most successful at pursuing Kate. And he has consistently just put me in the right place at the right time with things I couldn't have even dreamed would have been significant. Like putting a jacket over her would have been the perfect way to speak to her heart and make her heart feel safe about covering. Yeah. It's beautiful.
So Erik just kept inviting me to do different things, walks and time together in different ways. And one kind of favorite moment in the beginning that gives you a picture of this culture of celebration, he took me out to lunch, which actually, of course, turned into our most used phrase together. Like, as we kept getting to know each other, all these overlapping things. Oh, of course, mint chocolate ice cream is your favorite. Oh, of course, Cheesecakes Unlimited is your favorite restaurant for the salads. So he took me to Cheesecakes Unlimited for lunch one day, and since he goes there a fair amount, the waiter that he had knew him, and so he's just taking the moment right in front of me. Kate, I've got to tell you about Dustin. He is awesome. He serves with such excellence. He just goes on and brags about Dustin, just celebrating him. And in this moment, I'm sitting there going like, that's what I do. Are you kidding me? 2 of us in the world? Oh, wow. The world would be a better place. It was a fun moment. So just continued encouraging and enjoyable interactions. We ended up having a good, clear conversation that we weren't necessarily ready to officially date, but we were just enjoying getting to hang out and getting to know each other more and wanted to keep doing that.
I'd actually found out that she was going to the UK.
That's right.
With Paul and Leif in a couple months, so or about a month after the airport ride. So I had specifically set in my heart, you know what, I just want to hang out. I don't want to talk about dating. I don't want to, do that. I want to be really careful about, not touching her, not talking about dreams for the future, not naming babies, not doing anything.
So wise. I'm so grateful. It was just such a free, enjoyable time. Good job.
Thanks. Leading into this trip to the UK, it got to be the week before, and she texted me one day. She's like, hey, how was your day? And I'm sitting there thinking about how I want to respond, and I realized all of a sudden, oh man, I really missed her today. I hadn't seen her all day. We hadn't really been able to talk that much, and so I wrote it, and I looked at it before I sent it, and I was like, so I erased it
like 3 times.
I did.
But then he finally sent it.
Because I was just like, this is how I really feel.
Yeah.
I missed her today.
Yeah. And it was so just sweet to get to experience, like, because I had been starting to feel like, man, I'm going to miss this guy when I go to the UK. And historically, I'm wholehearted, all in, right in the moment, and I haven't missed people a ton. So for me to start feeling, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss this guy. This feels like a big deal. So I got to respond to his choice to initiate and lead in vulnerability and invite us into another level of relationship, and just tell him, hey, wow, yeah, I've been feeling like I'm really going to miss you too. So just sweet to get to meet him at that place that he opened a door for the next place of connection.
Mm-hmm. And so the day before she leaves, then we get to go on this picnic, and we're, I think we ended up bowling that night. While I'm packing up the car in this beautiful picnic that Kate has made, and we've been hanging out about a month and a half, 2 months tops at this point in time, and I'm loading the car, we're about to go on this picnic, and she's in the house, and I just hear this completely interrupting thought. If she offers you a drink of water, you can ask her to marry you. And I'm like, what? I didn't really even hear that just now, did I? I'm thinking, what was that? And I kind of just shoved it to the side thinking, that's pretty crazy. So I go back inside and I sit down and pretty much have forgotten about this whole thing that happened until Kate looks at me first thing. And she goes, hey, can I get you a drink of water? And my jaw completely just dropped. And I was like, sure, you get me a drink of water.
Which, just to clarify, as a hostess, if you've got other things to offer people to drink, usually that's what I would start with the other options. I don't just go straight into, hey, can I get you a drink of water? But apparently that day, I was totally unaware of what was going on there. I didn't see the jaw hit the floor.
Yeah.
But
she said it verbatim.
Yeah.
And I told myself right there, I was like, that is crazy. Like, Bible school, kind of ring by spring. Had a dream last night, and Jesus was officiating our wedding. Kind of people pull this crazy stuff trying to, So I was like, I'm not telling anybody that just happened, because that was so out there for me. So I kept it inside. We went and had a fantastic time. She left the next day to go to the UK.
And kind of fun, while I'm out on my trip, I start realizing a few days in that I've been subconsciously avoiding this other single guy that's on the trip, because I could feel that there was potential attraction coming from him. And once I realized, I was like, okay, I don't need to avoid him. But it gave me great information, realizing, okay, my heart is not available. It is choosing Erik Bagley. So I'm starting to feel this. We're having little Skype times here and there, 15, 20 minutes when we can catch some. And we're connecting so well in those times that even though he had planned to have a face-to-face conversation when I got back to talk through dating, it just became really natural to have that conversation. So we ended up over Skype chatting a little bit, and he actually initiated just sharing, hey, Kate, I'm just really excited about you, and I don't want to get to know anybody else like I'm getting to know you and spending time anywhere else. I'm just really excited about this. So how do you feel? And I got to share about this guy and realizing I've been avoiding him because my heart is not available, and I'm feeling ready to move forward. And the grin on his face, oh my gosh. The man competition, I win. Yeah. It was fun to get to tell him that. So yeah, in that conversation, we actually chatted, and Erik asked such a great question. It was...
Yeah, I asked her, I said, hey, what do you feel like your heart needs before we move into a dating relationship?
Yeah. So at that stage, he had alluded to the fact that he had a pretty significant story and testimony and history through his life. And so I felt like, yeah, I need to and want to know the full picture. And so that was one thing I asked for.
Yeah, so my story, unfortunately, I made choices through my 20s that are not easy to tell anybody the things that I had done, but especially somebody that I had started falling in love with, and thinking about, spending the rest of my life with Kate and moving toward that, and just wondering, is she going to be able to handle what I have to tell her? And I had been going to church my whole life since I was 3 years old, and when I got into my 20s, I was getting out of Bible school and didn't really thrive there, kind of dried up, and a lot of my foundation from earlier in my life had really broken down, and so I was in a place where I was in a lot of pain, and I didn't even know it, and I was questioning a lot of things. But I started drinking, started partying a lot, started hanging out with a group of friends that we were all starting to become the age where we could buy alcohol, and that kind of became a regular routine. And through that, I met a girl who had also been going to the same Bible school, and we decided that we wanted to get married. And after a short time of dating, and so we ended up getting married, and it was really challenging from the very beginning, and I wasn't faithful to her. I made a lot of bad decisions inside of that marriage that hurt her and hurt me, hurt a lot of people, and neither of us believed in divorce, and we tried to stick it out and work on things. We went to counseling, and in the end, it just wasn't something that was going to work out, and we made the decision to get a divorce. And at that point in my life, kind of the two ultimate things that you could do with your life were to be a fighter pilot or to be a preacher with this particular church that I grew up. And I hadn't gone the route of being a fighter pilot, and this particular church that I grew up in, you couldn't be a preacher if you had been divorced. And so I find myself in my early 20s thinking, I can't even do what I feel like is the ultimate that I could do with my life. And at the time, I thought that God got angry with us when we made mistakes or when we did stupid things. And I was carrying a ton of guilt and shame for not being faithful to her, for doing all this partying and drinking and things. And that just, I went full on into this just medicated, spaced out, I don't care about anything. I'm tired of, trying to be such a good guy when I don't feel like a good guy at all. And just continued to get more and more serious in my drinking and the partying, and that eventually led to drugs and pretty consistent drug use on the weekends, every weekend partying with friends, and lots of promiscuity and just lots of medicating in that direction. And it was through that course of my life, there was a ton of bad decisions and a ton of pain that I caused people, and ended up kind of needing to push away from my family because I was ashamed, of what I was, the choices that I was making and who I had become. And I dove into a swimming pool when I was drunk and broke my neck, broke C5, 6, and 7 vertebrae in my neck. And just the grace of God, I didn't have to have surgery. And even in that moment, I can look back in times when I was making dumb decisions, and I can still see His protection on my life and grace and mercy just consistently there. And there was a point about 27 or 28 years old. And it's been going on for about 5 or 6 years at this point in time. And it's hit rock bottom. I was in Houston, Texas, and working down there doing some things, and had kind of a little bit of my own business going. And there were some guys that went bad on a couple of business deals. And I realized one day driving on the Houston freeway, I was like, man, if I don't turn my car around right now, there's a good chance I could be homeless in Houston, within the next month. And that really scared me. And for the first time in a long time, I cried out to God in anger and frustration and fear, just as loud as I could. And I just cried out, and I asked him where he was. And within 30 minutes, one of my best friends from growing up, who I hadn't talked to the entire time that I had been in Houston, his name's Micah, he just called me up, and he was like, hey man, I'm thinking about you and just wanted to see how you're doing. And man, I was raw and emotional. I was just like, hey bro, it's not good. This is what I've been doing. Been taking a lot of drugs. I'm in a lot of trouble. Been making a lot of bad decisions, and I'm just scared at where my life is headed. And he was like, come on home. He's like, you can live on my parents' farm, and you can help us out, and we got a place that you can stay. We'll feed you. We can't pay you much, but you'll be taken care of. And so that was what I needed, the encouragement that I needed. I just turned the car around and went to Arkansas. And I think at that point in my life was when I really gave my life to the Lord. I was actually, there had some horses out there, and I was shoveling horse manure. And I remember this moment significantly of just saying, God, I don't care if I'm shoveling this horse manure the rest of my life, as long as I can feel your presence. I've tried to do this my own way, and it seems like I can't live life happily without you. And so as long as I feel your presence, that's all that matters to me from this point on. And I heard about Bethel shortly thereafter, and ended up making my way out here. And that car ride, significantly, I felt the grace of God from somebody like I had never even seen an example of before. I mean, not only was she being real, but what I was telling her, it was actually hurting. And there were some dreams in her heart of what she had thought, the husband that she would, the guy that she would marry that would become her husband. And there's a picture of what he would end up looking like. And then I was letting her know in that moment, like, hey, I don't look like that guy right now. And so there was some real pain there. But she just made me feel like a champion in that moment. And we're talking about a girl here who had to make a conscious decision. I think I'm going to try cussing when she was in high school. I think the story goes it lasted for like a day or 2 days. And she was like,
it's
not for me. It's just not who I am. But that's the way that she's just lived her life. And here I am, bringing all this other experience to her. And there was one moment in particular that I was feeling pretty raw, pretty open, and pretty exposed after just saying all this. And she was just being awesome. She was just like, hey, thanks for telling me, and thanks for your honesty. Thanks for really opening up. And so I just reflected back and celebrated her. I was like, hey, it's amazing the interaction that I'm having, and the way that I feel you taking care of my heart. You're a really amazing person. And she just looked right at me, and she was like, Eric, you deserve it. And I mean, she made me feel like an absolute champ in a moment that I was not feeling so stellar at all. And since then, one of the things that I've just realized, is that in my life, God doesn't treat us how our sins deserve. And getting to experience His grace and His mercy, and I go down this road of pain, of woundedness, and of trying to feel better on my own. And I used to, like I said earlier, I used to think that He would get mad at us, or that that he didn't want to have anything else to do with me because I was such a disappointment, or that I had just done things too wrong. It wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't salvageable, or there wasn't the ability to be the ultimate thing that I could be. But this woman is the most amazing person I've ever met, and she has stewarded her life, and she has pursued the heart of God and prioritized Him in her life, and I've been amazed with her since day one, and just the overwhelming thought of the love of Papa, that he's like, son, like, all that stuff that you did, all of that, here's your prize. Here is what I have for you. Here's the way I want to treat you. Here's the way I want to pour my love out on you. And just every time I think about that is his nature, that's what he chooses, I'm wrecked, blown away again and again.
I had seen him, and so in the context of hearing his story, there was definitely pain. There was definitely things that I needed to be able to process and work through, and Papa had actually set it up that I'd heard from somebody briefly just the piece that he'd been married before, prior to him telling me his story, and in that moment I just thanked them and let them know that I'd love to hear the fullness of his story from him. But that was such a gift from Papa for me to get to just do some prior processing, and I had a good cry, and some parts of the story that have felt like loss of certain dreams or things that had been in my heart for the relationship or for the husband that I would have. But as I just continued to sit with Papa about it and just pour out my heart and talk to him, he just kept saying, just trust me, because I'm feeling my heart responding to this guy in a way that I had never experienced before, and wanting to move closer to him and feeling safe, feeling valued and celebrated, and yet having to process, wow, okay, is this something that I'm willing to move into if that's part of the story, and just really settling in my heart in the place of, you know what, I will have an opportunity to experience the nature and character of God in ways that I never would if I get to choose to continue to press into Erik and keep my heart open and choose to love him. If he didn't have the story that he has, that experience just leads me into a greater partnership with the Lord, and anything, no matter what the cost, no matter what it is, that gives me that is so worth it. And just experiencing this man day after day, walking through things that have been difficult. One of my friends has said, relationship and marriage is the hardest work that you'll ever love to do. And so we've done some hard work as we've processed through and walked through things, but we have just made the choice, you know what? We don't want to be motivated to shield each other by pain or from pain. We want to really just be motivated by love and not have fear in there. And so nothing hidden, just getting to process and share and be known. And that was something really important to me. A reason why I wanted to know the fullness of his story, because if there would become a time where I would want to say, I love you, I would want that to be spoken into every part of who he is, knowing everything in his story, being able to say that. I love you in every capacity. And the beauty that Papa has brought and the redemption that our story gets to release and the grace experienced redemption is just one of the most beautiful things to me. He, in the way that only he can, takes what we have felt like is loss or backward motion, puts it in this slingshot, and just catapults us faster and farther forward into exactly where we're meant to be, into the fullness of life that he has for us, until the experience truly is like there has been no loss. And the way that Erik has chosen to respond and and move forward from his history. This man is shaped by the kindness and by the mercy and the grace of God, and a personal life mission statement that I've had is to be a living, thriving standard of grace. One who, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And that mission statement, that desire of my heart, gets to be more fully experienced and expressed in connection with Erik, in even experiencing the grace that he has an experiential knowledge of through walking through his story with the Lord, and the commitment in his heart that he doesn't want to treat anybody or interact with anybody in a way that the Lord hasn't interacted with him. Just the things that have been so imprinted on him through the pain and through the journey are things that have formed him into the man that I absolutely love, and that has created a safe place for my heart, and has gotten in and won won me. So this man is such a king, not defined by past, but the way that he is powerfully chosen to shape his life in partnership with the Lord. Just absolutely beautiful. So grateful.
We came back, and we're almost to the 4th of July at this point, and we get invited over to this house to watch the fireworks, and so I'm on my way to go pick Kate up. I think we're going to go for a walk and maybe another picnic or something, and we decide we'll do this, and then we'll go over to the house later on. So I'm driving over to her house to pick her up and listening to the radio, singing along, when all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I see these 2 doves, and they're on this collision course with my car. And so I took my foot off of the accelerator, and I'm just kind of like, what's going to happen? This is all happening so fast. One of them flies straight up. The other one banks super hard and flies right out in front of me. And it doesn't center on the car. It centers right on me, and it's exactly eye level. And I have this indelible impression of this dove flying away from me. I can still see its wings in slow motion on either side. And I'm sitting here just dumbfounded in this moment and watching this dove completely spellbound. And even though I'm not accelerating or braking, I'm still catching up to this dove. And about the time it gets even with the front of the car, it starts to get nervous and flies up and joins the other one. And I hear the Holy Spirit say right then, "Don't outpace the dove." And I was like, wow, that felt significant. Mm-hmm. Now I'm back in reality, just like, what just happened? Yeah. And I get to Kate's house, and we're loading up the car, and so I tell her this story, and she goes, "I really think that I feel on that's for our relationship." Yeah. And so we had a great time that night. We ended up hanging out. We went over to the house to watch fireworks, and as we're waiting to watch these fireworks, we're just talking about different stuff, and little did we know, Papa was completely setting us up for what he had later that night, saying, I mean, it was in his mercy. He was like, "I'm about to do some pretty cool stuff. You guys are going to have some pretty cool encounters and some conversations, and I'm just going to take the pressure out of the situation."
Yeah, so good.
It was awesome. So we're hanging out, waiting for the fireworks to start, talking about stuff, and I had this kind of odd experience. You know how God talks in themes for a long period of time. Ever since literally the week that Kate and I started hanging out, then I started getting this theme of Fiji everywhere that I went. I was seeing people drinking out of Fiji bottles. I'd be walking down the hall and people would pass me and I hear them talking about Fiji. I mean, just advertisements, whatever. It was just everywhere. And I started thinking, like, "Papa, are you calling me to Fiji? Because that would be awesome." Or am I going to meet somebody that's from Fiji? Do I need to pay attention to that conversation? Do you want me to intercede for Fiji? So asking these questions, not really sure what it was. I'm thinking the possibility of there being some long-term time in Fiji, and here I am pursuing Kate, thinking about marriage at this point. I need to know if Fiji is on her radar at all, and so I actually brought it out in the open and asked her.
She just asked me if I had any connections in Fiji, or if Fiji was on my radar in any way, and in that moment, I'm thinking, okay, how do I tell him without telling him? My mom, my friends all know. Yep, that's one of the honeymoon spots that I've been thinking about for the last 3 years or so, New Zealand and Fiji. So, instant processing. Yeah, I don't have any relationships there, but it's on the list of places I'd like to go. I was, trying to give him a smooth answer, but he was kind of watching, and he just pulls it out, word of knowledge, looking at me, going, "You want to go there on your honeymoon, don't you?" And I was just like, "Yep." How about that? Of course. Yeah, there it was again. Of course.
Yeah.
We just laughed. We didn't really talk anymore about it.
But it had been so bizarre. There was that. There was people from the very first times we were hanging out be like, "Hey, how long have you guys been married?" Or, "Oh, you guys are such a cute couple. You're gonna have cute kids and stuff." And we're like, we're not even married.
Didn't have this at that point.
Yeah, so it would just be bizarre to us of why they would, say that, or, and there's just other things. But there had been so much outside of our own influence pointing toward marriage. And here we are. This is July 4th, the first
official day we were dating, actually.
Yeah.
Mom had met him, blessed us to date. This is our first official day.
Yeah. First official day dating, and we're already feeling like, man, there's all this stuff pointing toward marriage. And so I, riding home in the car that night, I was like, hey, all this stuff that's outside of our own influence pointing toward marriage, what's that doing in your heart? Like, how are you feeling? How are you processing that?
So it just created a great opportunity to dialogue, and I got to share, I'm feeling excited. I mean, the Fiji thing, I just feel so known by the Lord. That just is amazing. Mm-hmm. The fruit has been peace. I don't feel pressure, but definitely recognition that I need to get to know you still. There's process to walk out, and I need to experience you more. So.
And I'm like, there's one more thing. I have to tell you. And I told myself I wasn't ever going to tell anybody about this. Outside of this context of this conversation and what we've been experiencing, I probably still wouldn't tell you, but at this point in time, it feels like information that you need to have. And so I, with great trepidation, go into telling her about if she offers you a drink of water, you can ask her to marry you. I go through that whole story. I'm driving along, and it's just completely silent in the car. And I'm like, oh, man, I probably just ruined this relationship. I scared her off. Now I'm that weird guy that, And I look over. I steal a glance over at her, and she's just crying. And I was like, oh, Papa, please let those be good tears. Don't let that be sad tears.
Yeah. So I just took a moment and told him, Erik, that has context for me. Rebecca is my story. The story in the Bible, talking about Rebecca being at the well and offering to water the camels that were brought there. From just experiencing encouragement from Papa about marriage, that's what he had spoken to me through, saying, Kate, Rebecca was at the well doing what was before her to do, just like she was every day. And so I had formed my lifestyle and my perspective instead of trying to look for somebody and create something. And I just decided, you know what? I'm going to put my energy into becoming the best, most healthy, alive, and whole Kate that I can be, fully expressed. And
you did a good job.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And become the best gift that I could give somebody even before that was in my life. So that was the stance and the posture that I had taken. Just really comfortable and confident that there would be a convergence. And sure enough, the Lord spoke to him something that he thought was pretty crazy. He had no grid. But that language about offering a drink of water is completely the language of the passage that the Lord's spoken to me out of about marriage. So we just had this moment looking at each other in the car, palpable presence of God just filling the car, and we just kind of chuckled like, okay.
And I'm sitting there going, Papa, you just did it again.
Yeah.
Like, detail I could not have known, and you lined it up. And I feel, what I loved about that is he didn't say, if she offers you a drink of water, you're going to marry her. It wasn't like he was letting me in on something that, you know, he wanted or that he was directing or that was a must. It was, hey, if she does that, you can ask her to marry you. It felt more like, I'm giving you something unmistakable, and I'm just saying, hey, son, this would be a really good thing. Like, you need to pay attention. Like, this is good.
So cool. So at that point, after this series of God moments and sort of divine coincidences pointing us at the recognition that Papa is really involved and he thinks this is a good thing, then Erik started to communicate more of his heart and open up just from his own experience of me, just vulnerably and beautifully, and really letting me know where he was at. So the next day, a couple days later, we went on our first official nice dinner out date, and he just shared something really profound in a moment where there's just a tender moment, and he said, you know, Kate, I have a lot of love in my heart for the kids that I'm going to have already, and I think about them a lot, and I think about what I can do with them and give to them, and other than introducing them to Papa, you are the biggest gift that I could give to my children. Woo! Definitely felt that in the moment. It's pretty much clearly letting me know where his heart was at. And so I start the next week just emotionally, I'm feeling things and thinking things I've never thought before, thinking, man, I think this might be my husband. My needs are changing. I'm just really responding more and more to him. And I'd say the next pretty significant thing in our journey was we were just at a church service one night worshiping, and I was on my knees just in this tender spot with the Lord, and I felt him just bring before me different people, different circumstances, investments that I was making, different things that I was involved in that season. And just asked me the question, Kate, are you willing for some of these things to shift and change and transition in this time? And absolutely, just doing the heart process of releasing some of those things and letting them go. And then I felt him ask me again, and in the specific context this time of saying, Kate, are you willing for some of those things to shift and change and transition to come under Erik's covering? And in that moment,
I had been just having a great time in worship. I noticed that Kate had kind of gotten down on her knees and was in this really, significant place of prayer. I had no idea what was going on. But similar to him telling me, hey, put your jacket over her, I started hearing, hey, you should put your hand on her head. I'm like, I glanced down, I'm like, seems like she's in a pretty good spot. I don't know if I want to, distract or whatever. I felt it again, this drawing, like, you need to put your hand on her head. And so I just reached over and right then just put my hand on her head.
I start bawling because there he is, right when the question is asked, super similar to when the Lord said, hey, if she asks you if she can give you a drink of water, you can ask her to marry you. There's an invitation there. I felt the same invitation to say yes to him and align my heart and align my life to come under his covering. He just knows I'm a daddy's girl. If Papa invites me into something, I know it's the safest place and the most wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. So that was just so meaningful to me, in addition to just being completely free in and of myself to choose if I wanted to say yes to Erik. So in that moment, I'm crying, and it was probably the first hardcore cry moment, snot, tissue that we had. It was beautiful, and I just kind of picked my head up. I was like, it's good, I'll tell you later. It was just wonderful, cleaning my face. And later that night, we just went back to his back porch at his house, and I basically shared what happened.
She had this look on her face, and I'll never forget it. There was this moment of recognition where she realized all of a sudden, I'm looking at my husband right now. And I remember her looking at me like that. It was one of the most beautiful things.
Because in that moment, I had said yes in my heart to him. So at that stage, just really good communication, getting to say, so I've just said yes to you, basically. And, you know, I know you, and I've seen so many good things, but there's still so much more to know, and I need to experience you more. And I feel safe. I know I'm safe, but I need to experience that I'm safe. And I still need to fully fall in love. I mean, there's more of that going on than I've ever experienced before, but I think my heart experiencing that I'm safe unlocks that to be able to happen. And again, don't outpace the dove. Just both of us so open and eager and willing to walk out process and take time to just get to know each other and enjoy the journey. And it was in that moment that I asked him, so how would you feel if I asked you not to kiss me until you know that you are absolutely in love with me and you're ready to do something about it, and you're pretty sure that I am too?
And I was like, you think I'm gorgeous. You want to kiss me. Not really, I didn't say that. No,
you didn't say that.
I was like, actually, that would be easier than what I had in mind. I was thinking I would kind of like to wait until we get married, if we get married, to kiss on the wedding day.
Such a gift. Because actually that is what, in my heart, I fully really wanted, but there was part of that was motivated by a little bit of religiousness that I could feel inside myself. So I communicated to him what I felt was freedom, and Papa handed me back the desire of my heart for that standard out of a place of freedom and his initiative, his choice. And in the context of his history and story, what a powerful choice, what a powerful desire, and a picture of redemption, and just so, so beautiful. So it was just a really fun moment, and we have loved walking that out and just really enjoyed looking forward to that. And yet it's been such an absolute joy to steward emotional connection and communication and learning each other and just building the things that really, really matter. And then we have a whole nother aspect of our relationship that we're going to get to enjoy. There was one other thing that I'm like, okay, you don't really just tell a guy this straight out. I had an encounter seeing different aspects of my wedding, and one of the things I saw was that I saw my ring and it had a globe in the place where the center stone was. I actually kind of interpreted that a little bit literally, and I thought to myself, wow, that's gonna have to be a really supernatural stone for that to look good. But it was connected into a promise I've taken really personally from Abraham's blessing that in you and your seed, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Just this sense of, yeah, the man that I marry in that covenant, the fruit of that relationship will impact nations. And so I had it in my heart like, oh, I kind of want a supernatural stone in my ring. But I mean, you don't just tell a guy that, like, yeah, by the way, you're going to have to work out getting a supernatural stone for my engagement ring.
No
big
pressure.
deal.
Yeah. But I, separately, when I was in the Philippines for the first time, they had these gemstones they had been finding, and I got to hold them. I'm sitting there looking at them. As I'm taking a picture of it, I'm sitting there thinking, man, that would just be really beautiful to have Papa give me a supernatural gemstone that I can then put in a setting and propose with it.
So kind of like the Fiji moment. He just pulls it out after I tell him, yeah, and there's one more thing that I don't feel like it's time to share yet. He just goes, you want a supernatural stone in your ring, don't you? And I'm just like, what? Yes.
Yeah.
And he tells me, yes, so do I. Of course. Yeah. Okay.
So in that moment, we're kind of processing, and we've been so taken care of, and Papa has just lined everything out. And so it just seemed very natural in the moment to say, hey, why don't we just not talk about marriage again until we get a supernatural stone?
We look back and we're like, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And nonetheless, what was partly in my heart at the time was just thinking, man, there have been so many overlaps actually in our story with the way that the Jewish Hebrew customs were in the betrothal process. And so as I had been researching and reading and just finding this correlation between the story that Papa was writing with us, I just told him, babe, how beautiful would that be that as we walk in relationship together and come to a place of feeling like, yeah, we're ready. We feel like that's the next step for us. And then in community with the people that speak into our lives and are part of our relationship, hearing from them at that stage, like, yeah, it feels great, guys. You've been preparing well. Feels like timing is right for you guys to move forward and get married. And then the language that Jesus used when he said, I go to prepare a place for you, or no one knows the hour but the Father. Those things that he said made complete sense to the people in Jewish culture, because that was the way that they did things. The bride and the groom would have a betrothal time where they knew that they were going to be getting married, but the groom would go away and prepare a place. He would actually physically build onto the house a space to have his bride join him in. And then the father of the groom would ultimately determine when his son was ready, when it was time to retrieve his bride. And so the last part with the supernatural stone, just thinking, then after we and the community feel like we're ready and it's time to have the Father himself go, here you go, you're ready. That was part of the revelation, the heart in it, and so we just thought it was a great idea and decided that's the way that we were going to proceed.
Mm-hmm. So the very same week, I, in a seemingly unrelated conversation with Papa, started feeling this urge to pick up trash everywhere I went, under, the storyline of, hey, this is my city, and I'm gonna steward my city in whatever ways that I can right now. And why leave the trash for somebody else to pick up? I'm gonna pick it up because I can. So I'd be walking across the grocery store parking lot and see some trash, and if I stepped over it, I'd just feel it's like, and then I'd walk back and grab it, or just different things like that. But it became this totally joyful, like I felt like worship when I was able to just pick up trash, and it became this beautiful interaction with Papa and I. And a month later, we're on the very first family vacation we've had with her family, and her mom is so sweet. We were down in Morro Bay hanging out, had a great time, and her mom was just like, hey, Eric, I really want to get to know you more. Can we just hang out and maybe go for a walk or something? And so we went for this walk and been gone about 2 hours. I shared my entire story with her mom as well, just transparent and openness, and her mom was great. It was totally beautiful the way that she accepted me and loved on me and gave me some great feedback and great advice. And we transitioned the conversation and kind of like, well, so you and Kate are feeling pretty strong about each other, and you can tell, like, where does this put you? Are you guys getting married? Or when? What's timing starting to look like? And
I had kept my mom up to speed on pretty much all the details of the relationship, including the fact that we had set marriage and engagement kind of off to the side until we found a supernatural stone. So she's just asking some more questions, wanting to hear from Eric a little bit. But
so as we're talking about the timing of this, then I just go down to pick up another little piece of trash. I'd already picked up a few pieces, and I started to put it in my pocket, and it kind of glimmered at me, and I looked at it a little more careful. It was this little Ziploc bag like this, and it had this gemstone in the bottom of it that looked like a diamond. And I exclaimed, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And her mom is just staring at it like, what is that? Knowing exactly what had just happened. And I took it back to Kate, and when we walked back down to the house, and we just
laughed for
hysterically.
like 20 minutes.
And cried and laughed. It was so fun. It had only been a month since we said, we'll wait on this. Who walks down the street and just picks up Ziploc bags? It was really beautiful, too, the symbolism in it, that I had thought that I was going to pick up a piece of trash, and there was something beautiful and something valuable in it. And we have found that, that theme throughout our relationship, and just what Papa has done in my life, and where something that I could have discarded or could have just said was worthless, that he's actually been saying, no, there's treasure there.
Yeah, so good.
I'd been studying the life of David right in that same season, and seeing what was different about his heart. And one of the things that was very significant that stood out to me was in being anointed king when he was really young by the man of God in the country, and having slayed Goliath, having lived in the palace and all that, there was for all intents and purposes, this entitlement for the throne could have come on David. And yet we find him out in the wilderness. He's fending for himself, trying to find food. He's living with a bunch of hooligans who were later to become the mighty men. He's, running for his life from the guy that's sitting on the throne that he's supposed to be, that he's destined to go sit in. And yet his heart is so postured and so open to listening and to just walking out process well, and to honor that even when an opportunity presents itself, and at the admonition and encouragement of his mighty men, David doesn't take Saul's life. He doesn't take the kingdom into his own hands, and what he was actually destined for, what he had a prophetic word about, that boom, it's there, it's right in front of him. He didn't do it. He's like, I don't want to touch the Lord's anointed one. And what I love about that is he knew the nature of God. He knew his ways, and he was like, I'm not going to do something that you wouldn't do. And in that, he ended up walking out the process well. He ended up coming to the same result, but he did it in the way that it seemed like the Lord had what was best for him. And I just happen to think that the mighty men wouldn't have been as loyal or had as much honor had he taken the kingdom in his own hands by slaying Saul.
Yeah. So there's no exchange for walking the process out fully. There's no shortcuts. And we've just had such a recognition as well that we weren't just entitled to just get married at any point. The Lord is building something. We're building with him and together. And we have just really chosen this heart posture of, we're not entitled to each other. We get to steward each other, and we get to steward what it is that Papa's building in and through us. And there's extents that we don't even know of the impact of what he's building. So it's just a real joy and a privilege. But at that point, a month in, we're thinking, okay, wow, well, you're showing us the big yes endorsement, but it's still not time. We're gonna continue to walk out the process.
So you fast forward to next summer. We had January timeframe started entering into some pretty significant process. The merging of life, continued transparency, openness. It got to feeling pretty like at times, but just beautifully communicated, and always honor, and always just leaning in and prioritizing connection. But I got to the summertime, and I was really struggling. I was watching this beautiful girl who had so blossomed in the beginning of our relationship and falling in love. I had watched through all this process her kind of begin to wilt, and I could tell her heart was really tired. And I began to just ask the question, like, man, do I have what it takes? If I can't make it work with Kate Eifert, I might as well just, hang it up, because I'm not going to get it to work with anybody. So it was it was a really challenging question, just processing that with the Lord and trying to figure out, do I have what it takes? Early on, there was so much of Papa giving us a thumbs up that, spiritually I was in, and slowly over time I had fallen in love with her, so my heart had said yes as well. But I think I realized that summer that, man, I don't know, like, if I had actually consciously chosen that I'm saying yes to you, I'm saying yes to the process that it's going to take, yes to marriage being the hardest work I've ever loved to do, hadn't just consciously made that decision. And processing that with Holy Spirit, then I just heard him say, it's like, Erik, there are things that you won't ever get to know about me. And there are things about you that will never get to be fully expressed outside of your relationship with Kate. And that alone, that right there, having given the rest of my life to know him and to prioritize that was, I was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. There's no price too high that I wouldn't pay just to know him more, or to be able to experience what he is saying. You know what? This is full expression. Mm-hmm. And so at that point in time, I was finally all in with my mind, my heart, and my spirit.
Woo! I could feel it. It was pretty stunning. This champion, full force, just creating safety and the strength in him just being expressed on a whole other level as a heart, spirit, and mind all saying yes to me. Just this man has answered the core question that is in the heart of a woman for me of, am I worth fighting for? Loud and clear. What he has continued to do on a daily basis and prioritizing my needs and really connecting into my heart. Just absolutely beautiful. Super, super grateful for this king of a man that I get to marry.
I just want to say thanks so much for you guys and for all the family, all the covering, the friendships. I've been poked and prodded more in the last 2 years by all the gatekeepers and the people that love this woman so much and have thoroughly vetted me out. Mm-hmm. And I actually have come to just love and appreciate that. Yeah. I just want to say thanks so much for the input and the wisdom that everybody has given us. And I just feel so loved and feel so blessed to have such a wonderful community around us.
Yeah. Having the resources, the wisdom, the insight from a lot of married people, moms and dads, and just the safe place for friends to be able to process, and just invaluable community around us. We would not be who we are apart from the community that's been in our life. So we're just super, super grateful and really excited about this next chapter of life that we get to do and expand and create family even more in the context of community that we're really, really blessed to have in this place. So thanks a bunch. We love you guys. And we're excited for the next chapter.
Yeah. Love you guys.